the reason smart people or successful people aren't happy is because we keep moving the goalposts and we're looking outside of ourselves to get external, I don't know, alignment with the world for it to be okay, for us to feel good. And as long as you're looking outside of yourself to feel happiness and joy, you'll never find it because those are inside jobs. You don't find joy looking outside of yourself. You find joy by coming to peace with who and what you are.
Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges, as he explores turning the page on his life and yours.
Hi there, and welcome to the next chapter with Charlie. Today, we have a fascinating conversation. And I'm going to tell you the title: Why Aren't Rich People Happy? Or why aren't they at least happier? And we are chatting with Larry Kesslin, entrepreneur and philosopher of life. Now check this. Larry writes, "My life changed in 2012 during a trip to Africa. I went there to bring computers to rural villages in eastern and northern Uganda, but what I found was something much deeper. I met people who had very little in a material way, and yet they were joyful, connected, and full of purpose. Their way of living has opened my eyes and made me rethink everything I believed about success and happiness. And I wanted to understand one thing: why are so many successful people unhappy?" Let's find out more as we bring our guest on the show, Larry Kesslin. Welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Thankful to be here. Appreciative to be alive. Yeah, it's a fascinating question, and we are a fascinating creature. We'll just start with that. So
Yeah, before we get into that, let's do
Sure.
a little preamble. I'm going to talk because I too have been to Uganda.
Uh-huh.
I've probably been to Uganda 18 to 20 times, and so I have been in villages, and I was delivering water. We did water wells in Uganda, and we
It's a
served
beautiful
like
thing.
1.5 million people.
Yeah, a
We
lot of
brought
people without
water
clean
to-
water. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Girls out of school, because they have to fetch water. There's so many
The whole
issues
day.
around
Yeah.
it. But I too got a chance to work in rural communities, and I experienced exactly what you did. They have nothing. But one thing that I noticed that made them happy, and then I want to hear from you.
Sure.
One thing I noticed that made them happy: they share.
Yeah.
If somebody in the community has some resource, has some food, and other people in the community don't, they don't just hoard that food. They're not hoarders. They don't hear we're out of toilet paper and they buy up the store in toilet paper. They share what they have with their neighbors. Tell me, what was your experience about like that?
It's hard to explain. I've only been there once. I just spoke to an entrepreneur yesterday that I invested in back in 2013, and he's going to try and help me get a speech over there again. But I just saw people that were at peace and they had a shared purpose, and that shared purpose to me, I believe, is survival. And I believe that the reason that they're deeply filled with happiness and joy is they don't have a lot of comparison to anything greater than what they have. I think they all share. When I was there, I met a young man who I sponsored, and that was 2012, so it's 14 years later. And Armstrong now lives here, and he's running into some challenges. He says, "Mr. Larry, if I'm back in Africa and something happens to me, I know who's going to take care of me. Everyone. In the United States, when something happens to me, I have no idea who's going to take care of me." And it's a very scary way to live when you're living in this place where everybody's focused on what we generally term rugged individualism. I mean, we are proud of the fact that as Americans, we drive into our own garage with our car, close the door, and raise our children in isolation with just two parents. And I'm not sure that's how we were born or how we were created to live on this planet. But it's how we've created our society, is this idea of I. I am a individual that needs more than you do, or I've earned all this. The truth is we're all one. We're all deeply connected. And there is no I. I mean, I'm a being and I have this thing called a brain and I have access to it and I have a way of being in my body that I can feel things, but they don't define me and they're not me. And I've met a lot of people that believe that they are their thoughts. And that's where the challenges start in our culture. And when I was in Africa, people were just kind. They were generous. They were connected. They're still connected to the land because they still have to farm it. They're connected to their ancestors. They don't have lots of technology to get all the information they ever need. At least when I was there in 2012, the internet was not even available to 99% of the population.
Well, it's
So,
probably available to 90. It's probably available to 5% of the population now, or
yeah, I mean,
10.
it's crazy. I mean, I talked to a young man who was telling me the history of the United States. I'm like, where'd you learn that? He said, my grandmother. I'm like, it's not anything close to the history of the United States that I understand, but God bless your
Really?
grandmother for passing down some good stories. Because I did a dinner with a bunch of people about 2 weeks ago, and I asked the question at the dinner. I said, what is it costing you to be right? Why is it so important for us as a culture to be right? So if I were to sit there and talk to this young man who is telling me his version of US history, his relationship with his grandmother was more valuable than the truth of what happened in the United States over the last 250 years. Who cares? At the end of the day, do you want to be right about your facts? Or do you want to have a relationship with the person that you're sitting with? Does it matter who's right? Does any of that stuff really matter? And I question that now.
Yeah, what's big in Africa, where you're talking about when you get into these small areas, and it is community. It's all
All
about community.
community.
It is a we culture, not a me culture, and we are a me culture.
Oh, the United States is all about me. Rugged individualism is our passion, is our badge of honor. And I don't think that's why we're here. I'm working on another book that'll be out probably next year. And the
Okay.
idea is that we live on this continuum. So I don't know how much you've studied Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs,
A
but
bit, yeah. I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
so Maslow never created a hierarchy of needs. There's no pyramid in his
Yeah, I think I heard
research.
that from you. I did not realize that.
Yeah, so the pyramid, the hierarchy was created by some consultants that wanted to use his work in the work world. And so they created food, water, shelter, safety, love and belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization was the hierarchy. And
And
Maslow, when he died,
isn't there now a new higher one of transcendence or something?
self-transcendence was what Maslow was talking about before he died, but it's not in the hierarchy and nobody ever talks about it. So my
Okay.
question is there even a hierarchy? Was it even in his mind designed as a hierarchy, or was it just different stages of connection? And what I believe is that when you're in survival mode, you're all about each other and surviving because you're all connected because that's your purpose. When you're in love and belonging and self-esteem, you're not focused on purpose at all. You're focused on me. And when you're focused on me, you're an individual, and I think purpose goes away. And I think at the top, self-actualization, which is finding one's individual purpose, and then self-transcendence, which is oneness with God, you're getting to become truly enlightened, then there's purpose again. And I think our reason for being on this planet, a lot of what I talk about and what I work on with my clients, is about human connection. My purpose on this planet, my mission, is to help people connect to themselves, help them connect to others, and help connect to the resources they need to leave this planet better than we found it. Not that this planet needs to be better than we found it, yet some of us have a desire to make others' lives better. And some of us have a desire to just take care of ourselves. And there's no judgment in that. Just I enjoy taking care of and being of service to others. I just wrote a post last week Actually, maybe it was this week, Tuesday. I think that being of service and giving of oneself is the most selfish thing we can do. And everybody
Wait a
says,
minute
no,
now.
that's
Repeat that
selfless.
because that's really that flies in the face of everything we teach. Repeat that, please.
So when we give of ourselves fully and we are being of service to others, that's when we feel the best. That is the most joy that I get in my life, is being of service to others. So if it feels really good to do it, why is that called selfless when it's really selfish? It makes us feel good. Come on, we do everything to make ourselves feel good. We fight, we do everything in our history to make ourselves feel better. We take positions because we think it'll make ourselves feel better. But at the end of the day, it's just our mind messing with us, in my opinion. I could be totally wrong. I could be sitting here in my own little fantasy world trying to explain something that I know nothing about. And I don't claim that I have any knowledge about anything. All I do know is that I wake up every morning pretty peaceful. And not a lot of stuff bothers me. No matter what's going on, I know that everything will work out exactly the way it needs to because that's how the world works. We have control over very little. We can work harder and get more results, but I'm not sure we're here to get more results. I'm not sure that's the reason humans are on this planet. I think we're here to connect and be
We
together
are
and be part of a community.
and well, and it's not just the world believes that, or much of certainly the third world believes that.
That's all they
You know,
know.
the religious world doesn't believe that. The United States doesn't believe that. But people in poverty, which is, what percent of the world is in poverty?
I think it's 40% of the world right now.
40%, and that's like talking $1 a day or less in income, right? Yeah, and it is connection. It's all about connection. It's all about people.
Do you know
It's
the
all
study
about
that was done at Harvard over the last 85 years?
lots of studies. Tell me which one you
So
mean.
there's a book out called The Good Life, which was published 10 years ago. And after 75 years, they did a TEDx talk and they promoted this whole study that they started now 85 years ago.
Oh
And they
yes, I'm
studied
familiar with that. Yeah. Go on,
400
please.
plus Harvard grads and 400 plus men in Boston, all across segments. And they studied them over the last 70, 80 years. And they could tell at 50 whether somebody will be happy at 80 based on one single criteria.
Can I guess?
Go for it.
Relationship.
Human connection.
Yep.
The depth of their relationships, and not just their primary relationship. They need to have multiple close, meaningful relationships. And if you have multiple relationships at 50, odds are you know how to build relationships and you'll be happy at 80. If you're isolated and lonely and by yourself at 50, you're going to be miserable at 80.
Yeah, and then people don't realize that at 80. That's why these like retirement communities are so popular.
Because people
Because
need to be together, but
it's community.
it's community, but it's also broken because I don't think the elderly are meant to live together all by themselves. I think they need the young people. They need babies in their life. We need multiple generations living together. I don't get all of this, but I live within
Well,
it.
at least
And I
it's
accept it.
connection. I totally agree with you, but at least it's some connection
No question.
apart from just sitting at home, watching the tube, not even reading. I mean, it's just like, so many people my age, I'm 76, so many people my age are just not doing fun things, and they're not in community, they're not in communion with people.
No.
It's funny when you say values, it made me think, and I've not thought of this in this context. This is really interesting because it was not long ago, less than 10 years ago, and I think it may have been during the election period, the presidential election period. And I told my son, I have 3 values that are going to be important in the party I select, because I'm very centrist in my, so I could go either way in parties.
Sure.
But my three values, check these out. You're going to crack up. My three values were freedom.
Hmm.
So that's going to always be there. I mean, freedom is crucial to me. I mean, I think that is the difference in the United States.
No question.
But then the other two were meritocracy and individualism. Those are what my values. And I said, and my values today, I think if I were to, and I wrote my values for the year, what values I want to live by, and so I didn't list freedom, but freedom just underscores everything. But my two values that I live by are kindness and experience wonder.
Yeah.
That is it. It is kindness. I want to leave a legacy of kindness, of just doing good and quite honestly, Larry, simply being nice.
But you said the idea of wonder.
Oh,
Most people walk around the world. I mean, think about this. 76 years ago, plus 10 months, plus 40 weeks, your parents did a physical act and a sperm won. He made it into an egg. You reproduced a few billion times inside your mother's stomach, and you came out with 10 fingers and 10 toes with a mind and all these organs that most of them you have no idea what they do. Your body pumps blood, your body digests food, your body does all these things, and your body has a mental capacity. And in that mental capacity, it does what it naturally needs to do. I call that the subconscious. The conscious mind, this thing that allows us to inspect what's going on in our mind, to me is part of our challenge. It's like I'm listening to a book, Ego is the enemy.
oh,
And
Ryan Holiday.
yeah, so I mean if you think about that, our ego is our identity and it's not us. So the thing that was born 76 years ago is a beautiful being that was then taught to be what their parents needed them to be what society wanted them to be. And the opportunity when we become adults is to figure out how to get back to being that little baby again, that pure, innocent being that just experienced wonder every day. Everything was wonder. There was nothing but wonder because you had no language, you had no ability to describe anything. It was just all possibility and all amazing. And as we grow up, we get less and less creative, we get less and less risk tolerant. We do things because other people told us, and we worry about things because people told us, oh, you'll get in trouble for this, or the house is going to burn down for that. I find it to be very fascinating.
Yeah, a big word you use, word creative, which I think is very important in my life. But you know what's an even bigger word that drives wonder in my life is curiosity.
Oh, no question.
It's
All
just
about curiosity.
it's always about curiosity. I'm
If you're not
always
curious, you're
wondering.
going to judge, you're going to have envy, you're going to have all these different characteristics about your life that don't provide peace. Curiosity allows you to wonder who the person is that you're talking to versus judging them because they're missing an arm or judging them because they have no hair or they can't see or they don't look like what you would like them to look like. They're just a human being in a package. They're a being that has a mind and a body and all these organs, and you get to decide how you want to interact with them. But most of us, me for most of my life, would judge other people. Oh, he's an alcoholic. Well, why does he need to drink? What does the alcohol do for him or her? What is it about? Is it just because they want to relax, or are they really numbing some pain that happened in their life? And if they're numbing some pain, what was the pain and where did it come from? And why do they need to do this versus, oh, they're just a waste of life? People do it all the time. They're not worth my time. They're not, I'll give anybody 30 minutes. If you want to earn more time, that's a whole nother conversation, but I'll talk to anybody, anywhere. I have a card here somewhere. His name is Mustafa Dada. I'm at the car deal. I'm at the tire store, and I see this guy with this really cool beret on his head. And I'm in San Diego, California. Not too many people walking around with a blue beret on their head. Little shortest man, and I say hello to him at the desk, and we ended up sitting next to each other and having a beautiful conversation. Turns out he's a world-renowned historian on genocide. We had the most fascinating conversation. And if you become curious, you get to meet some amazing people, which is the whole thing about my book. I mean, in the Joy
Show
Molecule,
your book again. Because I
it's
want
right
to put
behind
you
me.
in. Oh, there's the book, The
That's the
Joy
book cover,
Molecule. Yeah,
but
we're
this is the
gonna.
book. It's called The Joy Molecule: How to Unlock the Power of Human Connection. And it's 8 stories of people I've met over the last 12, 14 years since I got back from Africa, and 5 lessons that they've taught me. And I tell their stories. And when I get on stage, I tell the stories of each of them. I have videos from some of them, and I talk about how they've affected my life and the lessons they've taught me. And my lessons are mine. And you're on this planet, Charlie, to learn different lessons than I am. So the question becomes,
Absolutely.
what are the lessons you need to learn for you to find your joy? I have mine, and maybe some of them are the same, some of them are not, but
Of
we all
course.
have lessons to learn.
Of course. Of course. You know where my curiosity comes into play strongly, and it's why my wife and I are very committed travelers. We take a cruise once a year for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we go somewhere for 2 or 3 weeks. And it's
Yep.
always, I am, I heard a quote on this last cruise I was in. I heard a quote that I've probably bastardized the quote, but I like my bastardized version. And is, I no longer take vacations to sightsee. I take vacations to experience wonder.
Yeah.
And we just went to the Orient. We just went to Japan, Taiwan, Korea, China, and our Hong Kong, so kind of China. Um, um, and it was all just experiencing the wonder of the people. That the lifestyle is different, what they're doing, different foods, different modes, just different everything. And I'm always, since we didn't speak the same language, so I'm watching, I'm just observing. And I love to, when I use the example, when I go to Paris, I I've seen the Eiffel Tower, and I just don't need to see it anymore. It's just, a big piece of, you know,
Metal. Yeah.
metal upon metal.
Mhm.
I like to, when I stay, when I go by myself, when my wife doesn't go, sometimes I'll go by myself. And I stay in these off the wall communities in
Mhm.
Airbnbs,
That's
but
all I do.
many times hosted Airbnbs. So I'm with somebody from the community, and they serve as my guide. Go see this, here's this you want to visit, here's who you are. And it just makes for these most wonderful experiences. And it's all about curiosity, and it's all about wonder, just the wonder of life.
Hmm.
Tell me more about your book, The Joy Molecule. I have written here that you address 3 questions, and I know I read this somewhere. What are you? Who are you? And why are you here? Are those the 3 questions you sort of deal with, or did I just make those up?
No, I define joy as knowing what you are, who you are, and why you are. So I started writing this book. The title of the book came from the previous book that I wrote in 2015. So in 2015, I was working with a writer. And in the end of the book, in the last third of the book, I wrote down this line: conscious connection plus purpose equals joy. And she's like, oh, that's C2P. And I'm
Okay,
like, conscious
say it, say
connection
it,
plus
say it
purpose.
again. Conscious connection
Plus
plus.
purpose. When you consciously connect with others that have shared purpose, which is why I think I found the people in Africa to be so joyful, is because they had a shared purpose. The shared purpose just happened to be survival. And since in America we're beyond survival, we need to find our own purpose to be able to deeply connect with others. That's my hypothesis. But knowing why you exist is only part of it. You also need to know who you are and what you are. So those are the 3 different elements of the joy molecule. So there's actually, on the back of the book, is an actual molecule. So joy is surrounded by what, who, and why. And they're different sizes because they're different levels of connection. A what connection: what do you do for a living? What's your favorite sports team? To me, that's a resume, surface level connection.
Okay.
The next
Okay.
level is who are you? And that's your values. I like people that are self aware. I look for people that want to make the world a better place. I look for people that get stuff done. And I look for pure givers. That's my value set. And I call them self aware, world changing, get shit done dolphins. Because I have this whole idea of sharks, dolphins, and sharks that dress up as dolphins. And the sharks are the takers, the dolphins are the givers. And the sharks dressed as dolphins come as givers, but they're really there to take. So those are my values. So that's a deeper conversation than what do I do? But the deepest connection and the deepest place to connect is why do you exist? And most people don't ask the question. But if they're looking for purpose and they can't find it, I say, stop looking. Like, what do you mean? I say, go find the place where you feel the most connected. And when you find that place, my guess is that's where you're going to find your purpose. Because I believe purpose is a doorway, joy is a doorway. They're all doorways to what the Harvard study said. They're all doorways to deeply connect with others. But in order to deeply connect with somebody else, who's the first person you need to connect with?
Yourself.
Exactly. So once we connect with ourselves and understand exactly what we're about, who we are, and why we exist, then nobody can tell us that we're anything other than what we are, what we know ourselves to be. So when someone comes up to you in the morning and says, you're a jerk, I can either say, what did I do that made me a jerk? Or I can say, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I know I woke up this morning with the intentions of making everybody's life that I touch better. Didn't decide to be a jerk, so I don't know if I agree with that. But thank you for sharing. Two
Or
totally different ways of
another
handling it.
question is if they say you're a jerk, to me, a good question was when? You must have
Yeah.
had some experience with me that led you to believe that. So when? When was I a jerk? I want to know more.
Honestly, at this point in my life, I don't know if I need to know more about that. Because many times it's their own issue. Many times, so this is the piece, this is the shift in life. Charlie, if you want to, from my perspective, our society lives in this belief system that all of my problems are outside of me. And if the world just showed up the way that I wanted it to show up, everything would be perfect. And the truth is that nothing is about what's outside of us, and everything's about what's inside of us. The world outside of us does not make us feel anything. We choose to feel, and most of it's due to what Eckhart Tolle would call a pain body, or Michael Singer would call a samskara. Some wound that we have from being a small child that we experienced in the world, or some damage that we lived through, or some painful time that shaped us to believe that whatever was coming at us wasn't good. And all I can tell you right now is if I look back to some of the most challenging moments in my life at 62 and a half, I can tell you that some of those most challenging times in my life were the best things that ever happened to me.
Absolutely.
They were not bad. But
Absolutely.
somebody saying, I'm having a bad day. I'm like, are you really having a bad day, or is this day just filled with more energy than other days? Is it possible there's just more tension in your life? It's not bad, because you're going to look back years from now and say, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So if it wasn't as bad as you thought it was, why do we label anything as bad? They're not bad. They're just moments in time.
Now that is an interesting thought. They aren't. There's not anything bad. There are moments in time. I like that. I
There is no
approve.
good and bad,
But
Charlie, in
that's
my world.
but that's in your world is really different than the world we live in.
No, it's not different than the world we live in. I just interpreted it differently. Because if you live in neutrality, so if I break myself into my three pieces, so I'm this physical being, I've got a body, right?
Okay.
So skin sack, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
I've got a mind, that's the second part of my being, and I have a spirit, I have a knowing. And when I live from that place of spirit, And to me right now, spirit has 5 major characteristics. It is 100% love. It is 100% abundant. It is 100% grateful. I don't need gratitude lists anymore. I'm just grateful. I wake up every moment. Think about it. I'm a miracle to be alive in the first place. There are moments in my life I should have died, and I didn't. So I'm here. Why not enjoy every moment of every day? Why can't we? So my spirit is love, abundance, gratitude, presence. It's exactly where I am at that moment, and neutral. The only thing that gives everything around us meaning is my mind and my thoughts. My thoughts attach meaning. When you listen to deep meditation, they say, go look at a tree until it's no longer a tree. Because it's not a tree. We just call it a tree in English. In other languages, it's a different word. So is it really that? I think about all the time when I see something that's blue. Do you see the same thing? Even though you call it blue, if I look through your eyes, would I see the same thing? And the answer is probably not. Maybe yes, maybe no, I have no idea. What I see as colors, some other people might see as shades of gray. So I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is if I let my spirit guide me, if my spirit is driving my car versus my identity. So when we're born this perfect being that is filled with wonder and joy. And we get put upon by our parents, by society, by everybody around us, trying to make us into what the world wants us to be. And then we get to decide at some point, do I want to be the person that society taught me to be? Or do I want to be the person I was born to be? And that person that I was born to be is very different than the person I was taught to be most of the time. And very rarely do you meet people that are taught to be the person they were born to be. I think it's probably, at best, 1 out of 1,000. So the other 999 of us schmucks, we got to figure it out ourselves. We got to figure out why were we put here? And what was I trained to be? And what was I trained to do? And does it really matter?
You
We
know,
get so much meaning.
and the last question is, I think the last question is really important. What does it matter?
What does it matter?
And you know, and I'll tell you, if I were to divide life, and I was taking a life, and I was thinking of 10-year modules, you know, 35 to 45, 45 to 55, etc. There's a lot of growth that are going on in each of those decades, each of that 10-year period. However, I have found, I have grown every year, every decade is better than the decade that precedes it. So my decade, I'm looking at not my decade of my 70s, but 65 to 75, although I'm past 75, but has been by far and away, Larry, the greatest growth period of my life. Like your questions, I have wrestled with your questions. What are you, who are you, and why are you here? I've wrestled with those for decades. You know, I don't know now that I could answer those questions because they are so part of me. They are so who I am that I don't know that I could distinguish the difference. I wake up every day with joy, with gratitude, and with looking forward to what I do next. And I don't have a real busy schedule. I don't have speaking schedules. I don't have any of that anymore. I don't have to do all kinds of preparing. I do a podcast and a blog weekly, but that's about as detailed as I get. But this decade of learning and being comfortable with me and understanding me, it's different, Larry. You will see you will see 65, watch it, just mark it down. Charlie said 65 to 75 will be my greatest period of growth. And I wonder what you will say in 10 years, we should chat. And you should say, Charlie, nah, it was the same, or say, something happened. I see life differently. I see things so much differently as an older man. And therefore I look forward to my 80s, and who knows that I'll go longer than that. But I just came from a doctor because I've got a small issue that the doctor has to deal with, and that is my closest thing to a health issue at 76. I just don't have health issues. They're forcing me to go through radiology for a very minor cancer treatment, a prostate cancer treatment, which basically all men after 70 years old will have some kind of prostate cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so at my age, typically the protocol is observation, because it takes prostate cancer 10 to 15 years to mature to where it could do anything to begin to kill you. And they figure at 75, most people are going to die in 10 to 15 years. So why do you even go through the protocol? Well, the good news is my doctor says you're too damn healthy. We're going to make you go through radiation because we think you're going to live longer than that.
Yeah, my parents are 94 and 91 and still alive, living in Florida. I'm going to go see them in about a month. And my dad was playing tennis until earlier this year at 94. So I'm very blessed. I believe that unless I do something stupid or something happens to me, I might be here for a little while. And I'm looking forward to this aging process of being more wise, I guess is the word that you're
Well,
attributing.
it is the word. It sounds so arrogant, but it is. It's just that, I felt incipient. The first time I felt wisdom was at 35 years old. I didn't consider myself wise, but it was the first time I felt incipient wisdom, like the beginning of wisdom, like it was just starting to come on. And now it's hitting a maturation phase at 76.
So if you were to take away from the last 10 years of your learning, what's the biggest learning that you've had?
Oh, we can't have silence on the radio on podcasts, and yet I want to think. What
Go
is the
think.
biggest learning I have had? I think it's these 10 years have been an invitation to experience wonder, to really appreciate it. I've always appreciated wonder, but not like I am now. It's a major piece of what I am, in that everything I do is experiencing wonder and joy and curiosity about people, learning about life, especially learning about cultures. I love learning about other cultures
So is
because
wonder inside of you, or is wonder something you seek externally?
yes, it really is. It begins inside of me. The experience of wonder begins inside of me. I see and feel wonder in everything that I do. But then when I do something intentional, big, like if I go to Asia, this year we're going to Iceland, and I'm not sure where else, but I just can't wait. I just can't wait to experience, not to say I've been to Iceland, because I could care less about do I be to Iceland, but I understand it's beautiful, it's just
Hot
wonderful, the
springs.
people are great. Have you been there?
My brother has. I have not been there personally. No, I've been to 42 countries, but that is not one of them. So I'm looking at going. My girlfriend and I'm looking at South America later this year, whether it's Peru or Ecuador or Colombia. I'm not sure exactly where we're going to go, but I'd like to go see other cultures. My girlfriend happens to be Hispanic and Latina, so a Spanish speaking country would be great. And I have been to every continent except for South America and Antarctica, so might as well check one off the list on the next
Yeah,
trip.
I haven't been to Antarctica, but I've been to every continent. I've not been to as many. I've been to 35 countries, but uh, but I like international travel. So
Most informative thing.
what's that?
When I go to another culture and watch people celebrate life so differently than I do, then what is the difference between our two cultures? It's all tradition. It's not truth, it's not right, it's not wrong. That's where we get the right and wrong from. Why do we mourn death when in India they celebrate death? Which one's right?
Yeah, you're bang on with the right and wrong. I'm not a right and wrong person.
There just is. That's the neutrality part of our spirit, is just is. Our mind wants to create right and wrong because it gives us an opportunity to find comfort and safety, which is, I think, what our mind wants in its simplest form.
The second level of my Maslow's hierarchy, is safety. Yeah. In your let's get to the question I said we wanted to talk about, and that was, why do smart people end up unhappy? I'm wondering why the adjective, and why smart. What brought smart into it? Because it's just, you could just say, why do people end up unhappy? Because that is just true of our culture, smart or not smart. So many people, and it's not everyone, of course, it's not everyone, but so many people end up unhappy, and fill their lives, and I want to
Chasing.
start defining unhappiness. I don't want to do that. I want to hear from you.
Well, I don't know if I use smart people all the time as I use successful people more, because success is why I redefine success, is that I think a lot of the challenges we face culturally is our definitions of some of these words. What is success? What is joy? What is happiness? What do all these words mean? Because they're different to all of us. So the reason smart people or successful people aren't happy is because we keep moving the goalposts and we're looking outside of ourselves to get external, I don't know, alignment with the world for it to be okay, for us to feel good. And as long as you're looking outside of yourself to feel happiness and joy, you'll never find it, because those are inside jobs. You don't find joy looking outside of yourself. You find joy by coming to peace with who and what you are.
You have a great quote that I wrote down: success, or the drive to be successful, is often a distraction.
Hmm?
And again, I don't even know if I'd use the word often. I think it just simply is a distraction. And
We're chasing what?
Doing what?
We're chasing what? For what end?
Exactly. What are we chasing? And success so much is financially oriented. It's about finances. It's about fame.
I got to meet Bill Murray in an airport one day. So he's sitting there by himself at LaGuardia Airport. This has got to be 20 years ago, maybe more. And I walk up to him, and there was an empty seat on either side of him, and the whole place was packed. And nobody wanted to sit next to him. They all knew who he was. And I walked up to him. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He's like, "Sure." I said, "I'll walk away if you want me to." He's like, "No, what do you want to know?" And I said, "What was your favorite movie to make?" And he says, "What About Bob?" I'm like, "Richard Dreyfuss, great movie, loved What About Bob." And then I said, "What about Caddyshack?" And he said, "I hated making Caddyshack. I filmed 6 or 7 times by myself. I wasn't part of the crew. I don't think he liked Chevy Chase, and it wasn't a fun experience for him." And I looked at him and I said, "Sounds like a great life." And he says, "No, great career." He says, "My life sucks just as much as anybody else's." And
Isn't that great? Isn't
it was,
that great? That
it
is
was
so, and that
spectacular.
is so Bill Murray. I mean, that just sounds so Bill Murray.
And then he looked at me and he said, "Truth is, everybody says they want to be rich and famous, but they don't. The rich part, whatever. But the famous thing, you lose stuff you can never get back." So his anonymity, and I would believe his ability to truly trust people, is challenged once you become super famous. Like, how do you know who's with you because you're famous and who's with you because they want to be with you?
Yeah, fame. I agree. There are certain aspects of wealth that, and that depends on how we define wealth. If you have the resources to do the things you want to do, and just like for us, like travel. I want to have enough resources to travel. I want to have enough resources to live comfortably in my house, but not, um, um, but not extravagantly. I have no
So go back
need
to
to
your
live
time in
extravagantly.
Africa. I mean, do the people in a rural village in Gulu in northern Uganda, do you think they care about that? They're just trying to survive. So their ability to find joy and peace when they don't have enough money and they don't travel the world and they're not going to exotic places, those things do not bring joy. They bring experiences. They bring the opportunity to find more connection. But these people already have what most people are looking for. I have a friend who's been to India probably 80 times.
Okay?
And he says he meets teenagers there all the time that say they want to come to the US. And he's like, you don't want to go to the US. We said, we want what the Americans have. I'm like, you have more beauty here in your culture, the culture of connection, the culture of finding peace and joy and oneness. This guy that I know, his name is Casey, and Casey's brilliant. Casey was a physics major, ended up running a major technology distributor here in the US. And he's just super smart man. And he's learned that he's a being that has a mind and a body, and that when you meditate and you find mindfulness and you observe your thoughts, you know that they're just thoughts. But those thoughts, that's how I make a living today. I help people look at their thoughts and realize that they're just thoughts. They do not need to listen to those thoughts. They do not need to obey those thoughts. They get to decide. Their true self, the little baby that was at the wheel of the car when they were born. And as soon as they got started pushed aside because their parents needed them to be something, they couldn't scream, they couldn't cry, they had to smile, they wanted pleasure from their parents, all of that. You want that original wonder back in your life. And you want to just experience the world versus it needs to be a certain way for me to be happy. It's not going to work that way. We need to clean up the mess on the inside, not try and make the world look like we want it to look on the outside. And that all for me comes from thought. The more I think about things the way I need them to be, the more opportunities I have to push away from joy and happiness. And the more I just let the world unfold and know. So my company is called Five Dots. And the name Five Dots came from I love numbers and words. So my last company was called Liberate, LIBR8. Before that was For Profit. Before that was For Thought. All my companies that I've had have been numbers and words. And I heard Steve Jobs' commencement speech back in 2015, maybe 14. He did it in 2005. And he says in that speech that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And you have to trust in something, karma, your gut, whatever, that the dots will somehow connect. So we're just experiencing everything we experience every day. And someday we'll figure out why they happened. Or not.
Or not.
We might
That's
not
the
ever
beauty,
figure it
or
out.
not. Yeah.
Exactly. But why not enjoy it? If we have the ability to enjoy it, why not enjoy it? Why not choose joy? Why do we choose pain? Because we're taught that that's where true growth comes from. Who made that stuff up? I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that if I can reframe whatever I choose to reframe, not avoid the feeling. I'm not lacking feeling, but I get to choose how I react to just about every situation. And you can find peace and joy in every situation. I mean, Viktor Frankl can write a book, Man's Search for Meaning, get out of a concentration camp after years, and said he had joy and peace in a concentration camp, then anybody can do it. The last story in my book is a young man named Trinity. Emmanuel Trinity lives in Kampala. I spoke to him yesterday morning. He calls me Papa. He's 32 years old. He was born to a single mom in the slums of Kampala, an area called Kosovo. It's so poor, it's pathetic. His mom ended up taking him to every job she had until he was about 9. And then she got a job in the city and couldn't watch him anymore. So now he's a 9-year-old kid on the streets by himself in Kampala, and he joined a gang. It was the only way he knew how to survive.
Of course.
In that gang, in the first 6 months, 4 of his best friends died. Dead. Like, done. And all he worried about for the next 4 years was dying. And 2 weeks before his 13th birthday, his gang leader, which he thought about leaving the gang multiple times, but he knew if he did, he'd have to do something. They would come and get him. So his gang leader gets stoned to death in front of him, and everybody around him is like, get out of here, run. So he ends up behind a church with two of his friends, one who's malnourished and ready to die, and the other one who's still one of his good friends. And he gets tapped on the shoulder by a missionary from Northern Ireland. And she says, we're building a boys program at this church. Would you like to come in? If you accept Jesus as your Savior, we'll take care of you. We'll feed you. We'll give you clothes. And if I could give you one thing, what would that be that would keep you off the streets for life? So one of his friends that was with him said, give me a musical instrument. I'll stay off the streets for life. And Trinity said, if you get me a computer, I'll stay off the streets for life. So the woman brought them inside. The young man who wanted an instrument got a guitar. He's now one of the top recording artists in Uganda 20 years later. And Trinity got his computer. All he wanted to do was play video games and escape from all the crap that he had seen in his life.
Sure.
So by the time he's 15, he starts realizing what this computer can do. Starts graphic designing, starts watching all these videos, learning how to use it. And by the time he was 19, he got a job at Coke doing graphic design and videography. And he got the job. 3 months after he got the job, he was able to get his mom and his brother out of the slums and get an apartment. And then 6 months later, he quit his job. And everybody's like, what are you doing? He says, I'm not that great. I am not here to go make money for myself. I'm going to go back into the slums. He didn't know what was going to happen. So he meets this young woman who he's known since he was little. And she says, Trinity, my dad just fell off a ladder and he broke his back. I'm the oldest of 6 kids and I need to go make money for my family. And everybody's told me that the best way to do that is become a prostitute. So I'm going to go sell my body tonight. And he said, no, you're not. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, I'll take care of you and I'm going to teach you everything I know about computers. And what took him 2 years to learn, she learned in 3 months. Now she's one of his chief operating officers, now 18. This was 2018, they started the company. It's called Era 92.
Called what?
Era 92, ERA92.com.
Mm-hmm.
And Emmanuel Trinity is the founder of the organization. And he has done, Megan is the woman who he trained, and she's the COO of the company. And he has trained 5,000 street kids since 2018. He has 6 containers. Each container is filled with computers. They put them in slums attached to churches. The churches screen the kids. Only the kids that are worthy of getting the training go in. He's trained 5,000. About 160 of them work for him now. He's got a safari company. He's got a videography company. He's got a web development firm. He's got a car wash.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
But those are the people I get to meet in my life. And I say, okay, if he can have joy, and he can sit in my jacuzzi in San Diego and say, Papa, look at this. Look at me, a kid from the slums, here sitting in your jacuzzi in San Diego. He doesn't need to travel. He doesn't need to go anywhere. He just lives with joy, and he's lived through crap, like real trauma. And he just finds a way to find joy in every day. It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Larry, you have a wonderful message. I mean, it is
Thank you.
so true. I see why you're a public speaker. You're very articulate. You have wonderful ideas. I am going to push the joy molecule. I will make sure that's on our show notes and get our guests to buy it. I really appreciate your concepts in it. What would be, in closing, wrapping up our show, what would be your closing thoughts on what we've had to say here that you would like our audience to walk away with?
First step in any change is awareness. So the beginning of this journey, the beginning of anybody's journey, is just to be aware to the fact that you might not be as happy as you want to be. And if you're not, then being aware to that is the first step. And just be okay. Being okay with where we are is critical. We can't be any place other than where we are. So how do we help people be present to where they are? And I hope to help people find more presence. When you find more presence, you get to decide what each situation brings to you. And at the end of the day, we're all just creatures trying to figure out why we're here. And I'm not sure we figured it out yet.
Well, and do something.
Yeah. For me, taking action and making a difference in other people's lives is my reason for being here.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it has to be anybody else's, but that's mine.
I love it. Larry Kesslin, thank you so much for spending time with me today. You've been a delightful guest.
Thank you, Charlie. It's a pleasure, and I wish you the best. I hope you have a great time in Iceland. I hope you and your wife enjoy your travels, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much. Likewise. And I also want to thank everybody for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.